any fire that's lit, any spark that you light in somebody to learn anything, like warms up the petri dish for other things to grow. Business is messy and unpredictable.
Sometimes lonely.
So lonely.
So lonely.
And inspiration can often come from really weird places.
We pick up where the bullet point blogs and the highlight reels leave off.
We start with the stories. Welcome back to So Here's My Story. I'm Jody.
I'm Elliot.
Elliot tells a story today that...
I do.
He does. That gets us into, the constraints that happen about when you're sort of locked in this imaginary path of what's supposed to happen and how that can get in the way of developing people and finding your passions and what to do if you don't know what you're passionate about. And so there's really good stuff there about career development and developing people. So...
Excellent.
And before we forget, if you have not picked up our special episode, you can get that at shmsbonus.com or at 345. If you text the word story to 345-345. And I will just say one other request. If you love listening to us each week or whenever you do listen to us, tell a friend. We're finding that is how most people are finding the podcast is when someone else tells them about it. Which is upsetting because of our multi-million-dollar advertising budget.
And it turns out, who knew that word of mouth was going to be the most effective way?
Yeah. So if you find value in this, please tell your friends, even if that means showing them how to listen to podcasts, because not everybody quite gets that. But there you go.
But you do.
All right. Let's hear your story.
Okay. So here's my story. And I'm actually really interested to hear your take on this because... As
opposed to the other weeks where you're like, just keep your mouth shut.
I don't care what she has to say. I really don't. No, because this has been on my mind ever since I had a conversation with one of my friends. My friend was telling me that he owns this company and he's got maybe 20, 25 employees. And he has this one person that he works with, one of his employees, and she's been with him for long enough so that she's become really valuable, but she didn't start the company. She hasn't been with him for a decade or whatever. And I'm just going to call her Susan. So Susan's been with the company for a while, but she's just there and she likes her job, but this isn't her passion. She likes working for him. And so because of that, and they've had very candid conversations about that. And because my friend knows that it's not Susan's passion, then he doesn't really send her out to the trade shows and send her out to these events and do all the things that he would do if he were grooming Susan to become, on the management team and a vice president, an executive vice president, and then however they work or even let alone somebody to take over for him. And so he's worried about losing her. And the reason he's worried about losing her is not necessarily that she'll find her passion and she'll leave, because he's okay with that. If she discovers she has a passion for salmon fishing in Alaska, right, then that's great. Then she goes... She would never stand in her way. Then she would never stand in her way. But he recognizes that because of the conversations that they've had, and because he knows that this isn't her passion, he hasn't really pushed her. And so she's doing a great job, but it's overall, kind of languishing. It's just kind of, it's meh. It's there. Yeah. It's like they both develop this mindset of they're going to make the best of it while she's killing time before she finds out what she wants to do. And so we were talking about this because it was really bothering him. And I can't say that I came to him with the solution. Oh, I'm so glad you asked me that. Here's the solution. You should have come to me sooner. But in the conversation, we gravitated towards what I think was the really important point. And that is, and this is what he resolved to do and went back to talk to her, is that they're going to act as if this were her passion because she's here now. And she doesn't know if she's ever going to discover whether it's salmon fishing in Alaska or whatever that passion is. And so why not act as if this is it and do all of the things that he would do as if she were going to take over the company someday, train her and send her and introduce her and do all of those things. And if she found out that she was cut out for the salmon fishing, then she leaves, and she still leaves better than she had been. But if she finds out in that process of introducing and meeting and traveling and going and learning and all that stuff, maybe she does find out that this or facets of what she's already doing are her passion. and she wouldn't have wasted time. But what they're doing now is she's very useful to the company, and the company's moving ahead, and she's making a paycheck and paying what I imagine she's paying a mortgage or whatever she's doing. But she's marking time. And I know so many people, and particularly when I teach at Towson and I talk to college students, so many people are weighed down by this notion of finding their passion. Mm-hmm. It should be free. Oh, pursue your passion, pursue your dreams. And it should free you to think outside of just becoming a middle market accountant. But it doesn't a lot of times.
It becomes this like if then, or no, not if then, but like until then. Or,
until then. Right. I'll mark time. This is good enough. This is fine. This is meh. Right. And then someday I'll really start trying to grow and evolve. Yeah. I was just fascinated by this. Makes every cell in my body like cringy ache hurt. Like, well, that's what I'm here for. I have that effect on a lot of people, by the way.
So no, I get it, because like I would never say like finding your passion, do what you care about is wrong, because I highly, highly believe in that. But I don't believe it comes in a package of like deciding what you want and then going after it. I actually just had this conversation with another friend of mine who was being challenged to, decide what you want and then go after it. And he was frustrated because he was like, well, all the criticism he had gotten was you only ever move away from things that you don't want. And I said, well, that's, there are some times where that can be a bad thing, but to me, it feels a little bit like sculpture, where you have this giant block of things. And I'm better at creating from, okay, not that, not that, not that, not that, not that, that. Like, but I can't. I'm not someone who's good at like blank canvas saying, I want to create this thing and then creating it. I build the plane as I fly it. I find tiny pieces of things along the way. So I do buck against that concept of like, there's this like singular passion you're waiting for to show up, and then everything unfolds after it. There is a wonderful, wonderful TED Talk. It might not actually be a TED Talk, but it's like a TED Talk if it's not. Okay. I think it's Elizabeth Gilbert. I will, if that's not right, I will help Christy find the actual link to it. She addresses this exact thing, and it's a beautiful talk, because she gave a talk somewhere about passion and whatnot, and then she got this incensed letter from someone who had been in the audience saying like, but I don't have that. Am I just supposed to sit around till then? And she kind of doubled back on a bunch of the things that she had said. It may not have been Elizabeth Gilbert. It may have been the woman who wrote Eat, Pray, Love. It was, I think it was one of the two of them. Anyway, I will find that link, but it's a really fantastic talk. So we can find that. But it's interesting, when you were talking, I thought of that quote that I have seen a million times, but thought of in a very different context than the way to this story, but it still applies. And I'm sure you've seen it. It says, what if I invest in my people and they leave? And then the thing says, what if you don't and they stay?
Yeah.
But I always think of that as a totally different kind of scenario, where usually that's the like, oh, I don't want to invest in that. They're either a problem or you're just hesitating to invest. But this is a sort of a different version of this. And it's like a different version of a previous episode that we did on the difference between staying and not leaving, because that's where something's really bad or not working and you have to decide whether to go. So this is addressing that like in the moment, because here's what occurred to me as you were talking. You act as if this is your passion. First of all, how do you know it's not your passion? Like, because you haven't actually invested in it.
You haven't. I think that, because I think that if she's gone into this already predetermined that it's not her passion, then she's closed that door.
Well, because it also backs up to the whole thing we're bucking against here, which is the concept of passion as being this thing that's already in a wrapped up box or something. It's not your passion.
You just have to find the box and open it, and there it is.
Right. Whereas most people I know, there are a few people out there who have a vision of exactly what they want to do in the world, exactly what impact they want to have. I think for a lot of other people, when I've had conversations with them about what they want to do with their lives, usually what they understand is like some part of a job that actually could be snipped out and applied in lots of other kinds of jobs. Like I like being part of a team where we're solving problems. Well, that can be all over the place. That can happen anywhere. I like doing this, but you only get to those things if you are addressing, you can actually get to that kind of verve being the receptionist of a company or being the operations director or being a lawyer, or there are lots of different ways you can find that kind of passion, or I like helping people, or I like this. But you can't ever get to those things if you're in this like feet kicked back. And what I really thought of while you were telling your story was actually the first house my husband and I bought in 1999. We really thought it was going to be our starter house. We loved it. It was a cute little house, but we really didn't think we were going to be there longer than, I don't know, 3 or 4 or 5 years. I don't know exactly. We didn't have an exacting number, but we always thought we were going to sell it in a few, and we kept thinking there was a time we're like, oh, we should sell. And we didn't. And we ended up, fast forward to the end, we ended up staying there 12 years. But the really funny thing is about halfway through it, there was one time we were going to sell and then we decided not to. And this friend of mine said to me something that pointed out something I had never noticed, but was painfully true, which was, she said, look, if you're not going to sell now, can we actually move you into this place? And I was like, what? Like, we live here. It's not like everything's in boxes. What are you talking about? And she pointed out, she's like, you've never put anything on the walls. You've never painted a single room. You're using you haven't really moved in. You haven't really taken ownership of this place. You live here like you're renting. And she was right. Well, we hadn't really settled in.
And one of my friends did just that. She took a job right out of law school with a large firm. And she wasn't a large firm lawyer. She didn't like it. She had all the ability in the world. She could pay. She was doing it because what you do at a large firm is you don't have kids, you don't have a family, you put in 6.5 days a week, 10 hours a day, you pay your dues, you learn stuff, and you make a lot of money. And that's what you do. So she was doing that. She was marking time. And I would visit her at the law firm in her small, tiny little office. And she had her diploma from law school and her Court of Appeals certificate, and it was just leaning on the floor against the wall, and she wouldn't put it up. And I said, Sin, why don't you put this up? And she said, because this isn't where I'm going to stay. I don't plan on spending my career there.
That says so much.
And so she stayed there for 10 years.
No.
10 years. Did good work, learned a lot, whatever, and she's gone on a path that she's
never
very
put them up?
Never put them up.
Wow.
Because she was unwilling to admit. It's kind of like in The Office, if you've ever seen The Office, where there was one point when Jim said, how they do those outtakes, those interviews, it was documentary. So he explained the reason he wasn't doing this thing was because if I do this, if I accept what they're offering me, then all of a sudden this is a career, and I'm not willing to have this be my career. It's my job, and I'm fine with that. But if I do this, then this is what I am. I'm a paper salesman. This is my career.
Right.
And so he just decided, no, not going to do that.
Yeah. No, it's so interesting because if I go back to your story, if both of them invest in having the best now you can, I actually think that that's the only way that you get to the next cool thing. I mean, I was thinking about the receptionist position that I had at our architecture firm, and then other people had after it. And it was so interesting to me, the people who came in and took ownership of that position and, would take great delight in being able to one of the things I did was being able to recognize somebody's name, somebody's voice, and I could surprise them that I knew who it was. It's a silly little thing, but it made it more fun for me. Yeah. And other things where people would take great pleasure in really investing in that job. Those were the people that we ended up promoting into other positions and doing, whereas the people who came in and were just kind of coasting because they certainly didn't want to be receptionists for the rest of their lives. And they were just they were marking time. That's great, but they really missed out on opportunities to get involved in other things and learn about other things. I mean, that's how I learned about marketing. That's how I learned about finance was when I was the receptionist, I would help out the other people. And that's how I learned a lot of what I ended up doing.
Yeah. And you notice that. And as you know, we're recording this now. I just came in from trial that I started on Tuesday. And because the trial was a ways away from here and certainly much farther from where I live, my colleague Lacey and I went down and we stayed at a Hampton Inn, right? Fancy, right near the courthouse. But that's my point. So it's a business hotel. It's fine. It's really meant to be fine.
Right.
You know,
we aspire to fine.
Well, anyway, and everybody was really nice there. And I was actually very impressed with it. But there was this, the person at the front desk, and her name was Nicole. The person at the front desk, I noticed that when we came in, because I told her why we were there. She asked when I checked in what this bag was, because it's a litigation bag and stuff, and it was unusual. So I told her, we have a trial and we have two rooms. My colleague Lace is going to be coming and she's going to have this room. She's probably about half an hour behind me, and then whatever. So each day when we came in the afternoon, Nicole was there and she goes, "How'd trial go?" And she was really enthusiastic. She's like, "I hope it went well." And when we would leave, she's like, "Good luck."
Right.
And I was thinking, and I said to her at one point, "You seem really," she said, "How is something?" And I said, "I really like it. And you seem really, really happy here." And she goes, "Well, it's great to be here at the Hampton Inn. I'm glad you're with us." And I'm thinking, this is a huge place, Hampton Inn. It's not like she's a stockholder.
Right.
And she's at the desk, so she's not in an office somewhere.
And I guarantee you that is not her career aspiration.
That's not her career aspiration. Yeah. And I thought, wow, if she worked for me, I would love to have her work for me. I don't even know what she'd do. I would love to have her work for me.
I had this experience at a Target dressing room that this, normally at a dressing room, at best you get is like, "How many do you have?" And then you hand them back, and, you try not to feel bad that you're handing back 82 things they have to put back on the shelves. Yeah. You're like, "Sorry about that." This one woman, she said, "How did it go?" And I said, "Well, I really love this, but it wasn't in my size." And she puts her hand on the phone. She goes, "Would you like me to call one of our other stores and see if you can find it?" And I did. I reared back. I was like, "Holy cow, that's like Nordstrom level treatment from this random Target person." And I had the exact same thought. I was like, I would hire you in a heartbeat.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, but that's the point. I think she and Nicole at the Hampton Inn are either intentionally or just part of their personality. They are acting as if this is their career aspiration, and maybe they're putting on a front for other people. But I think part of that is just genuine.
I don't see how the two have to be mutually exclusive. It's almost as if we all have this weird story that if you fully commit to doing the thing you're doing at the moment 100%, that you have somehow given up on there ever being a different thing you do someday. Like the two are not related in any way, shape, or form.
Right. No, but you do. You have this weird story that if I don't admit to myself that this is the thing, so I put my foot still on the path of, yes, I'm still chasing my dream of whatever it is, because people would ask you, "Oh, so have you given up on ever being a marine biologist?" And you could say, "Oh no, I'm still chasing that dream. I'm just here making money while I'm, whatever." Right,
but that's different actually, because you have a dream of being a marine biologist. If you want to be a musician, or if you want to be a writer, or if you want to be a marine biologist, and you're not on that path, and you're doing this other thing, then yeah, I could see giving the advice of, okay, I had a friend in college who, after college, I remember her saying to me that she was intentionally getting the most, mindless wasn't the right word, but she got a job on purpose that did not use her brain intensely. Mm-hmm. It was a receptionist kind of at this very quiet office where there wasn't a ton to do and the phone didn't even ring that often. But she did that because she wanted to come home and be fresh to write and do the things that she cared about.
She was doing something tangible to realize her dream.
She was conserving her mental energy to be able to do something at home later. Right. So that's like a tactic you have when there's something you really want to do. So yeah, I could see not investing yourself. But if you're not sure what your thing is in life, what you care about, what you're essentially saying is, well, I'm just going to go without anything I'm investing my time and energy for until X future date where this thing magically pops up, versus you can fully commit to now and use that time to poke around and try different things. And if you fully invest, you have a better ability to say like, hey, you know what? You also faster get to like, this is not where I need to be. Whereas if you stay half in, half out, you could kind of stew in that lukewarm pot for.
Here's why. Okay. This is what I was thinking. Here's the thing. And I think it's part of an American culture, which is when people first meet you, one of the first questions they ask is, what do you do? And you become labeled. So when people say, what do I do? I say, I'm a lawyer. Okay. Well, in their mind, that carries a whole picture of who I am, what I've devoted my life to. And I think that if you're still thinking, I got to find my passion, I'm here in this job, doing, web design or whatever. It's not what I love to do. I just can do it. And I'm waiting for my passion. I'm not willing to say I'm a web designer, because then I create that picture. I label myself. That's who I am when I really don't know what I am. So I'm going to answer the question, well, right now I'm doing this, and you build this whole narrative. Right now, this is what I'm doing, but I'm really thinking about this, and I haven't really found what I'm going to do. And that's one of the reasons why I think the myth is that you can't fully commit, because to do that is to give up on your dreams, because it becomes a narrative.
I don't know. I still keep them completely distinct. So
no, I agree they should be. I'm just saying I understand why.
That's not what I meant. What I mean is, I hear you on that part, the identity piece. And so let's stick with the web designer. So somebody's a web designer. It's not what they want to do. It's fine for now. They're kind of there. They don't want to identify as, I am a web designer.
Right.
I still hold that completely distinct from when I am at work, acting as if I want to be here and being as fully there as you can be as long as you are there, until you know enough that you either want to get out or decide to stay there. But saying, like, you can know that that's not the thing. You're like, for now, I'm a web designer. But while you're there, be the best web designer you can be. Develop yourself, like, search things out. Because I think it gets you on a faster path to either saying, you know what, maybe this is something I really care about, or discovering I super don't like this. But there's something weird about the tepid zone that I don't.
Well, the tepid zone is certainly where I think it's most dangerous. But I do think that even allowing yourself all of those disclaimers to say, well, right now I'm a web designer. Yes, I'll be the best web designer I can right now. But as long as that narrative plays in your mind, and maybe to your close friends at work, and maybe even to your boss, if you have a really good relationship with your boss and you're saying, and he or she knows that that's not what you really want to do, I think that narrative becomes sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy, and you consign yourself to that tepid zone.
Yeah, I guess. Well, actually, the one thing I want to go back to, though, is you told this story from the perspective of the supervisor, boss person.
Yes.
And we've been talking mostly about the perspective of the person in the role. Mm-hmm. So you use the word grooming, and, whether we think of it as grooming or mentoring, mm-hmm. I think it's interesting, like, that you wouldn't invest grooming time into someone just because they're not going to be there forever. Any kind of development of a person, you might end up coming across their passion in the process. It doesn't mean that there's this like loosely formed metaphor in my brain as we're talking about all this, where it's any fire that's lit, any spark that you light in somebody to learn anything, like, warms up the petri dish for other things to grow. So, like, I could go on a web design conference. Yes, I'd be learning things about web design, but there's also other growing and stretching going on in the brain, that you discover other things. You might find that you're really fascinated by the business of web design, and then you want to stay there. Like if they're a good person that you'd love to keep, if they were, because one thing we haven't explicitly said is this is all very different from this person's just kind of meh in general. I mean, I think this thing we're talking about is usually being like a person that you would want to keep otherwise. Like, they're good. It's just, it's not their thing. So you don't think they're going to be around.
Yeah. But okay. So talking about it from the perspective of the supervisor, I think the supervisor my friend is telling himself a story from his perspective, which is, he's waiting to spend his mentoring time on that mythical person that comes along and says, I love this. This is where I'm meant to be. And then all of a sudden the boss goes, well, you know what? I'm going to pour my time into mentoring that person, because, and he's waiting for that mythical person, just like she's waiting for her passion to magically appear before her.
Right.
The boss is waiting for that person who is right out of the box, tailor-made to be mentored and wants to take over and all that. So they're both kind of held back by the fiction of what's supposed to happen.
Yes. And I think that's that tepid zone piece of if you're not going to invest in it, I don't know, this thought is like sort of jumping all over the place, but like if you don't pour something into it, it just...
I think that the point is, if you don't pour something into it, then what you've done is you've made it impossible for anything to develop.
Yes, that.
So that's our story.
But the discussion doesn't have to end here.
No, it does not.
In fact, we don't want it to.
No, we don't.
That is why we actually have our private Facebook group,
which we started to make sure that we could get your comments, your rants, your thoughts,
your stories.
Your stories.
You can find links to that group as well as show notes and links to subscribe via email and how to find us just about anywhere you can possibly find podcasts at sohere'smystory.com.
And you can also find us on Facebook and Twitter at SHMS Podcast.
And since we know it takes a village.
Yes, it does.
We'd like to thank our village, our super talented, incredibly patient team.
And occasionally snarky team.
Yeah, but in the best of ways.
In the best of ways.
Snarky.
Yes.
Good mockery.
So a huge shout out to the people who actually help us produce our show. First, our sound engineer, Tom Hansen.
Thanks to Christy Schmier for our brilliant show notes and all the other fantastic writing she does for us.
And to Taylor Mathauer for doing just a little bit of everything.
Including wrangling us.
Which
is no small feat.
No, it's not.
This is Jody Hume.
And I'm Elliot Wagenheim.
And you've been listening to So Here's My Story.